I think it's interesting every time a new opportunity, a new platform opens up, that we get to see the different ways that a magazine can be defined and can deliver for its consumers, whether it's online or mobile or even events or television. What a magazine means and what a magazine brand means both has a certain core meaning and can be expressed and executed in a lot of different ways. And I wonder what the panel thinks about the reader experience on the iPad. Does an iPad edition of a magazine do all the things that a print edition does in terms of immersion, engagement, you know, all the things that we, or you, when you go out and sell magazines, tell advertisers, make magazines a superior advertising medium? And if they do, plus have all this cool stuff, is this better than print? And I do want to say, Dan, you might have front-run me a little bit. Cost seems to maybe play in here. But does anyone on the panel want to tell me whether this is better than print?
I have a couple of stats for Brenda. I don't know if you just turn this on. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes. So we actually, it's great to see what Jim is doing, because the future is going to be very different from the present, and the future in the digital business tends to be like next week. So it's one of the fun things about being in digital, and also one of the most exhausting things. And we actually, when we started with the phone, and we started measuring engagement on whatever metrics we could with what we were able to get from Apple and with the analytics that we have, and we've continued on the iPad. And I just have a couple of stats. When we first put GQ on the iPhone, what we found was that the time spent and the number of times picking up the, you know, sort of the equivalent of picking up the issue, but revisiting the app on the phone, was almost identical to what we knew from syndicated research for the magazine. And it was many, many, many times more than what you would find with the website, which is a very popular website with very high traffic. And what we found since the launch of the iPad, which, you know, the fact that it was only 6 weeks ago is shocking for me to remember, really shocking.
Seems like a year.
It does. It is much more, actually. So we are seeing on the phone version of GQ right now about 60 pages a month per consumer. Which is high, and if you put it next to magazines and syndicated research, it's comparable. And we're seeing 160 for the iPad. And so some of that is probably the early adopter. Some of it is probably demoing it for my dad who wants to see it, and, you know, I'm showing it to him. There are extra pages that come in there, but we're seeing very, very, very high engagement with the iPad product, and we were pretty pleased with how it looked on the phone. I guess I would say one other thing about that. With what we have out there today, we've kept things very simple. We think that a lot of the sort of additional stuff that you can do, and there's some in there, I didn't spend a lot of time on that, is going to be very important in the future. But what we set out to do first was make sure that people understood that this was the June issue of Vanity Fair. I'm not missing anything. It's not half of the issue or some set of excerpts from the issue. It's the whole issue. And by the way, there's some video, there's extra slideshows, there's extra content, and it's fun to navigate and optimize for reading. And what we found with the GQ experience was just getting them to understand that that's what it was, and was so exciting to them. And it seems so simple, but we felt that in teaching people how to use a brand new device to read a brand new type of product, that would be the first hurdle that we need to get over. And the engagement metrics seem to be bearing down.
Brenda, from the buy side, what do you think? Is this better than print? Could there be such a thing?
It's different than print. I think we have to take a step back and think about this differently. It is something that, you know, shouldn't take the place of print, in my opinion. And I think, you know, it's not more superior to print. Again, it's different. It's an extension. It's a different kind of experience. And I think that's what all the publishers, you know, up here, as well as some, you know, who aren't, have really taken to heart. That, you know, in some cases it is a replication when you know, look at the magazine one way, but then when you turn it the other way, it is bells and whistles. And I think that obviously we need to let the consumer lead this development, but it's kind of hard when we're 6 weeks out. But I think that this is something that is going to constantly evolve. And again, it's going to be driven by the consumer. And I look at this as a new channel. So in light of this being a new channel, there should be, new metrics. There should be new kind of pricing. There should be new types of creative developed, and the ability that or we can finally give editors, or I guess not me, you guys can finally give editors the ability to be really creative and do something different, but with the brand in mind. So my advice has been to publishing executives is don't forget your brand, don't forget what your brand means to the consumer, and build a new experience or a different experience for that consumer based on what you're hearing and what we learned as more devices come out.
So I'm going to agree with my client, which is always a smart thing. The question is it better? It's just not a fair question. It's not one versus the other. Brenda said it already, and I just think that's a key thing to remember here. It is additive. It is something new. It is different. It's a brand new platform, and we should treat it as such. If you only think of it as another way to display the magazine, you're not nearly expressing what this thing can do, because then you would be confused as to what ABC's app is doing, because ABC is using it as another way to look at TV, and Netflix is looking at it as another way to look at movies. And we are kind of the Apollo version of going to the moon compared to what the space shuttle will look like in a couple of years. This is the first iteration. How many people here have an iPhone or played with an iPhone, right? Everyone? Remember the first year it came out? It didn't work. It didn't have all of these apps. What I think is critical, and I'm excited about as magazine brands are approaching this, is that magazine brands are not going to let the device be the excitement. Magazine brands are realizing that the content, just as now, the content and applications are making the iPhone interesting. We're determining that the content, the applications we put on this device will make it interesting, and it's not just the iPad, it'll be all tablet devices. And I think it would be a shame if we only limited ourselves to reimagining the magazine. There should be reimagining our content on a brand new platform, and we're just scratching the surface. Is it better than print? Not a fair question. There are things this will never do that my magazines do for me. I can roll my magazine up, stick it in my back pocket, I can ride on a bicycle down to the beach, and I can hang out. And this is not going to get rolled anytime soon. I can give my magazine to a friend and say, hey, check an article out. And while I'll be able to email things here, you're still going to need to be connected to that we're so far away. So there are so many things about a magazine experience that tap into emotion in a way that this device is not quite there yet. Rashad Tabakawala, who's again part of the Starcom family, is someone that I follow on Twitter, and a really good friend. The chief strategy officer for Viviki said this, and I just think, I'm repeating his statement, so I made sure I gave him attribution. And I think we have to think about it, which is that the future is not going to happen in the containers of our past. So if we just sort of remember that all of this is new stuff, but the stuff we've got doesn't have to be tossed out. It's actually really exciting and probably as vibrant as ever before. And I'm very excited that we are looking at this as sort of a new place to play, not a replacement of the stuff we've done.
Now, if